Well, here we are again. It's Unloose the Goose, episode 54. We're going to talk about underground networking. This is going to be a fun topic today. Here's who we have on the show. We've got Xavier Hawk. Say hi, Xavier.
Hello, everybody.
And we've got Jack Spirko. And I am Nicole Sauce. You're used to hearing my voice introduce these about every other week. So underground networking is something we get to define first. But before we jump into that, what are y'all drinking?
It looks like you went to Sonic. What is it?
A Kratom tea.
Kratom, all
Kratom
right. Did you
tea.
get it from John Bush?
Yep. Oh no, that's from the local store here.
The local Kratom store.
Yeah, they serve teas. They do kava and tea and all kinds of stuff. But.
Looks like Alliston has wine from the comment feed. Jack, what do you got?
I have vodka and LaCroix. It was gonna be just LaCroix, but after today, it's LaCroix and vodka. And you will probably see me disappear for about 5 minutes or less during this live feed. I'll just get up and leave, and when I come back, my glass will be full again. And if you're wondering, yes, it will be the same thing in there because this is a two drink kind of day.
2-drink day.
Yeah.
I've got some Tanqueray here.
There you go.
Mixed with
Gin.
fizzed Holler spring water because I'm not fancy like you. I don't buy the LaCroix. Tactical's got Holler roast on the feed, so somebody's making the right decision today.
Yeah. The LaCroix is generally designed to keep me from drinking the vodka because I can just drink the LaCroix by itself, and then I get the ritual of having the glass and the ice cubes. But some days you need more than the ritual. You need the rich.
Yes, the vodka rich.
The vodka rich. Go ahead. It's Deep Eddy vodka. Deep Eddy. If you're ever looking for a good Texas brand of vodka, Deep Eddy's pretty solid.
Nice.
It's not Tito's, but it's good.
Yeah, Tito's is good.
Tito's
half
is better.
Grape juice and half coconut water. Lisa, rocking the coconut water. All right.
Nice. Sounds like a little vodka could go in there and it'd be better. Maybe some rum.
Yeah, she may be thinking it's a bit early in the day yet. I don't know. She may have rabbits to care for or something. Okay.
4 o'clock.
That's what you can do when you run your own business.
It's 4 o'clock somewhere.
It is 4 o'clock. It's actually 5 o'clock where she is, I believe.
Yeah. So there you go. All right.
She's over the line in Tennessee.
Uh-oh.
News. Have you guys been paying attention to the Ass Clown Circus this week?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
There's something going on in California. I don't know. Lots of people talking about it.
Oh, yeah. What happened? I thought that was yesterday.
Oh, they cheated. That's what happened. Everybody wanted that piece of shit out of there. And then they used the same Dominion votingware software, and then fucking he's still there. Like a cancerous tumor on somebody's ass of the United States.
I hear him, but is he locked up again? He's not moving?
Yeah, his video locked up, and at least his audio keeps going. Yeah. So it's like he's here. We just can't see it. And at least it didn't freeze on a goofy expression on his face. He looks pleasant.
He looks decent. Yeah.
That
you
works.
Can't see me.
That's right. Why is Nicole all gussied up? I'm always gussied up. I just braided my hair because it's really hot here, and long hair down when it's hot's not good. So got to get gussied up for Goose too, of course.
Yeah, gussy up for the Goose.
Gussy up. I got to the creek. That's what happened. Okay, so that wasn't really the news buster today, though. Here's the news buster for the day, if you're ready for it. Everybody ready for it?
I'm
going to start with Jax. College sports are under siege. They want K Street to save them. What's this all about?
Well, you sent me the other one we're going to talk about, and it was about trouble for colleges because, well, they deserve it. And it turns out that as colleges are having trouble with declining enrollments, et cetera, during this COVID stupidity, that they're also having trouble with their multi-billion-dollar sports programs because it turns out when you have less students, less people go to games and pay to go to them, and less athletes are there to play. And, then your multi-billion-dollar little fiasco doesn't quite make multi-billion dollars anymore. And they want a bailout because, it's not their fault. It's not their fault that their enrollments are going down, and it's not their fault that people are fed up with their woke bullshit, and it's not their fault that any of this stuff's happening. And so they should get a bailout. They want lobbyists to help them and say, come support us, because we're essential to the country, that people can watch, college athletes play football at like 800 schools.
So somehow college football is unable to make money. Okay, paired with that, we have this one, which is big college. I'm sorry, wrong. Which is Nicole can't read. Colleges have a guy problem. A recent viral news story in the Wall Street Journal, by the way, reported that a generation of young men are abandoning college. The pattern.
And contrary to what the woke people say, it's like the guys that play football at the colleges. That's how the ones that make money for the school anyway. That's so, and they're the ones that go to the games more often and all that. So yeah, it's like
it's all tied together.
Yeah. Did you read the article, X? Did you get a chance to read that article?
No, I did not. So
it's not because of feminism in the colleges or the woke culture, and it's not because men feel under attack at the campus. It's because genetically women pay attention better in lower school grades, possibly, and therefore they do better at college.
That doesn't make any sense.
No.
So,
like, I think that's probably the premise that you're trying to get across by putting forth that article. That it's clearly the fact that the colleges are woke, that they're retarded and can't keep their sports stadiums filled and make money, and that's why the guys aren't there.
I mean, not being able to make money with college football, isn't that kind of like when the government took over a whorehouse and bar in Vegas and ran it into bankruptcy? Like, if you can't make money selling sex and booze, you really probably shouldn't be in business in the first place. Like, if you can't make money selling overpriced football tickets to college football games, like, really? And then I'm back to where X was talking about with your article, Nicole, of like, I don't know, if I'm a 20-year-old kid and I'm sitting in this classroom hearing how I suck every day and I'm paying these assholes $25,000 a year that I'm going into debt for, maybe I don't want to be there anymore. Maybe I don't want to be told what a problem I am. And, and I mean, even if I'm not white, if I'm a guy, like, if I'm hearing patriarchy every day and whatever, and I know, like, I'm going into Hawk for like the next 20 years of my life or more for a degree that's not going to pay the bills, maybe I'm just getting tired of being talked about like I'm a piece of shit. Maybe that's why I don't want to be there anymore. Maybe it's not because I didn't pay attention in fucking kindergarten. I don't know.
Well, it's also, Jack, because the same reason that you talked about for years, like I remember episodes a long time ago where you were talking about college as a racket, way before Gary Vee was, and how they're overpriced and you're not really learning anything. And nowadays you can learn anything you want to online. And if you want, and what is everybody interested in doing? Making money. They don't want to, go and take a theater major. They want to make enough money so that they can buy a theater, right? So they're learning all the things offline, learning marketing programs from, YouTube commercials, and that's what they're focusing their lives on now.
Yeah, as I was reading the article, and they were saying, 70% of college enrollment is now female. 70%. And this is a problem because back whenever we said there was 57% men and women when they decided to pass whatever, the act that says you can't discriminate based on gender and all those other things. And now it's 70% women, almost as if that did make a difference in the college campuses. And now they need to undo that because we need more, get this, men who will provide, who will stand up and provide.
Whoa, what a revelation.
That was in the article. And it was like, and women go to college and don't meet men who also have college degrees. So now they're not getting married. Now they're not having children for the heterosexual crowd. And now we're going to have attrition in population. And that's the problem we really need to solve. All because of this college thing going on.
Maybe society's been shitting on men for long enough that, the men going their own way movement is actually starting to work. Because maybe men are not just tired of being told that we suck when we go to college. Maybe men are being tired of having their children used as a weapon against them, and they don't want to have children anymore. And how unfair the family court system is. Maybe the patriarchy's like, you know what? fucking survive without us, and maybe that's starting to hurt a little bit. I actually have had some people in my audience, younger guys, that are part of that self-appointed movement, like McGow or something is what they call it.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, you're very short-sighted, because like you having a family means so much to you, that you're cutting yourself out of it. But the response I get is, what do I get out of it? Divorced in 10 years, 2 kids, child support for the rest of my life. My wife hooked up with some guy I'm paying alimony to support, but they know not to get married, so that, and I mean, that just seems like that. I can't really argue back with them against that. Like, I would never trade in my family for anything, but my family worked out. And I see what happens to people, and it's horrible. And I mean, I just think maybe a lot of young men are starting to say, you know what, fuck this. I'm in it all for myself. A guy can go out. I don't need a college degree. A guy can go out and go to welding school for 6 months to get a job starting at $80,000 a year. And $80,000 a year is not really great money to take care of a family of 5. But for a single guy, $80,000 a year, I'm going to have cups of money in my cabinet if I'm making $80,000 a year as a single guy living in a 1-bedroom apartment. Pretty nice, and that life does wear out eventually, but I think we're right in the middle of it. And I think you're seeing it in colleges. I think you're seeing it in the workplace. I think you're seeing it in men's refusal to get married, to get tied down, to have kids. And now they want us to provide. Well, isn't that fucking nice? Right. I'm in a rare mood today, folks, so I'm sorry if
I'm... Well, you're in the perfect mood for this. We're joined by Neethi Bali has jumped in late breaking news. She pulled an X on us.
I did. Well, I've had so much madness going on, and I was scared to say I was going to show up, but then I try always to come because I miss you guys, man.
Okay, so Neethi, what we're talking about are articles saying that there aren't enough men in college. We need to do something to fix it. College sports are not getting enough money. They need a bailout. What do you think about all that?
What do I think about universities or institutions? Let's see. I am not for institutions. I'm not allowing my children to support the institutions. I refuse to fund the institutions. I have trained my children to learn how to make money, and I am aligning them with other entrepreneurs to work and apprentice under versus going to college. But also because I don't want my children to grow up believing that love isn't possible or real, or that, I don't want them not to be interested in having children and procreating, because I am, the high priestess of the pasture, and I am going to speak truth about nature and the laws of the universe. And the law of nature is that our only work is to procreate, and all this other madness that we're doing is for the corporatocracy and the technocracy, which I do not support. So,
wow,
there's that.
Yeah.
Well, I was just impressed in all of these articles with the circular logic, because it's like a statement with a pregnant, obvious couple of answers, and then an explanation why the obvious answers are not the answers.
It can't be.
Shifting.
It could be our fault. That's what you guys, the woke people, going, it couldn't be. It couldn't be us.
Made up shit. And then it ends with, but we need to male dominance, male provider, male roles, female roles, family, bring God back.
Now they're for nature. Now they're for the hierarchy. Oh, now
I think they want us to do all the work and admit we suck at the same time, and say that we're not necessary and there's no difference between the genders and all. It's like they want both. There was an article about this years ago, and it had to do with like a Survivor type show, like where they're on an island, but it was a British version, and it was men and women. And then they eventually decided, well, let's see how this fucking works if we take the women and put them in a group and the men and put them in a group. And up until they did that, the women were like sunbathing all day and bitching and whining about crap and not doing anything, because the guys were all thinking, well, maybe I'll score. So they were doing everything for the girls. As soon as they separated them, the girls' camp was a complete fucking disaster. And I'm not putting down women. I'm putting down that type of woman, because they were like all young 20-somethings that had come through this indoctrination, but yet they wanted men to do everything. And when they had to do shit for themselves, they were screwed. And the men's camp ended up being like You know, they say women cooperate. The men were all getting along. They didn't give a shit. They were all working a couple hours a day each, taking care of all their needs and didn't care. And it's almost like we do better together if one side's not shitting on the other. It's crazy. It's almost like nature. Like Nathan says, like all of a sudden they want nature. Like when shit doesn't work out, where's the guy that's going to do the hard work and all the other stuff, right? You know.
Okay, well, the guys might be doing the hard work, but they don't know what is required without the ladies working with them. I mean, it's a complementary, you know, the whole relationship is you're complementing each other in major ways, you know. I mean, like in terms of like, I don't know, like with us and our kids, you know, like I'm the one who's letting my husband know, hey, they, you know, every 3 months our kids are in a new phase and he's out working. And so, you know, I'm like, okay, you don't need to handle this way anymore. Now you got to kind of talk to this one this way and that one that way, because they're different now, you know, because the kids are changing every 3 months. And that's just a small piece of it. You know, and yeah, I'm cooking and doing things at the house so that he is comfortably able to be out and working, because I'm making sure that stuff's happening here and he's making sure things are happening there or around or whatever. And we're both working, you know, you have to be synergistically working in this together. And the whole idea, I think these young kids, you know, these girls, the ones that don't know that women were always queens before because they weren't, you know, they haven't lived long enough to see that, is that, you know, men were taking care of things and, you know, women were queens. I'm not saying there weren't some deadbeat guys or there wasn't some abuse or whatever going on, or some women who didn't want to do shit either. Okay. Because it kind of goes in every direction. Because we're not all people.
Nathan, are you saying that just perhaps, contrary to popular belief, the typical housewife in the 1960s was happier than the typical 30-something, 20-something female is today? That they were actually happier in that world? On average, not individually, but on average?
I would confidently say that, because they were shaping the community. They, you know, when their husbands went to be interviewed, then those husbands had to take their wives. That was why it was a dinner with the wife. And it was an interview. That's true. And the husbands who were being paid and promoted were only married. And if they couldn't keep a wife, they weren't going to get the promotion. And that was it. Period. And the women were the ones who were shaping the community with their philanthropic, you know, focus. And they were the ones who were sitting on the boards where their husbands worked at their companies and using those corporate dollars from those husbands' companies in the community in the ways that it was required for the library or whatever their children in the community needed. But this is what this new age young world has no clue about.
Well, it's not just the young world, right? I'm the single person on the show, right? So I have an idea of how dating is, and I'm Jack's age. So my generation wasn't quite to the point where men were neutered to the extent that I see them neutered today. And you go on dates and men are terrified of making the wrong step because they're going to get yelled at for opening a door or for any of these things that would have just been polite interaction. And it's frustrating because I'm like, I want somebody who's confident enough to just be them fucking selves. Right. And that we can compliment each other and who can stand up to me. And as you can tell, I'm a little outspoken. So, you know, it takes a special person, but there's a lot of fear and lack of confidence. And
those women are complaining about it, Nicole. The same women who want everything or whatever are complaining about it, and they're not impressed with these guys because they want a manly man, but they can't handle a manly man because they won't allow him to just be a man. A man's going to be a man. You can't let him. He's either going to be a man or he's going to be a beta, and I don't want a beta.
So I
thought you were going to say a bitch, but it's the same thing.
Oh my gosh, somebody. So I've been hearing somebody say over and over how they want to set themselves up to be a high-powered male.
What?
And explaining what, like, it's weird. Like, this person commenting in one of my communities is like, I need a job that pays this much so I can be a high-powered male. And I'm like, you're never going to be a high-powered male with that attitude. Like, that has nothing That has
Yeah.
nothing to do
You're
with it.
screwed.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
screwed. It's never gonna
Like,
happen.
I don't even know what that
They
term
think the money
means.
gives them the power. That's you're saying they think that the money gives them the power.
You know, my solution for the whole if you open the door thing, you're chauvinistic or whatever, I open the door for you. If you bitch about it, you get hit in the ass with the door. Right? And then, you know, there you go. Like, I didn't know that was a problem for you, so there you go. Now
I
you
was
don't have
on
to
a
worry
business
about it
meeting.
ever again.
I was on a business phone call, and one of the people on the call was a woman, and she was like very aggressively like making her point across. And I totally got it. She was very passionate about what she was talking about, and she apologized that she was so aggressive. And I'm like, no, it's all good, darling. And my wife heard me say that, and she is like, did you just call a woman darling? And I was like, you're damn right I
Yeah.
did. You know, and it was
It was the
I had to-
nicest thing you could have said.
I was being polite, like, and then my kids were like, why is that bad, mommy? And I chimed in at that point, and I was like, it's not, you know. God, I forgot what I said specifically then, but it was hilarious, and my wife laughed, and she was happy that I had said it, but because it was like, when something's wrong with the world, when you do something nice, it's misinterpreted as to something abusive or oppressive, right?
First of all, chivalry is not oppressive or abusive,
No.
and all the ladies out there are out of their freaking minds, and they don't even know what you know. They want to be a queen, but they have no idea what is required to be a queen. And so, to be a queen, you have to allow a king to be a king. So you are no queen if you don't know how to allow the king to be a king.
There's a fucking T-shirt in that. If you want to be a
Yeah.
queen, you have to let a king be a king. You can't be a queen and have little beta male bitches following you around. That's not how it
No,
works.
I just
right?
don't know how
No.
you can be happy that way, really.
I mean, well, they don't know what
Well, they
happened.
are miserable, Nicole, but they don't know
Well,
why.
I read another article a couple weeks ago in New York, like liberal
This
ladies
is now a new subject.
are only dating or are targeting conservative males because they're tired of the beta male problem.
Yeah.
Wait,
What a fucking revelation!
Like if they're looking for somebody to marry, they want a conservative dude.
You know, and I
Like
don't,
liberal.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
tell you something. There is nothing attractive about a beta male. There is like nothing attractive about a beta male, and I don't know why. I mean, I should stop.
I would say the Russian
You know, and I don't know
ladies
about
have
you,
been
Ax,
very
but
It's endless to good. You get to say what you want.
When I was growing up as a kid, if I had been anywhere with like one of my uncles, my great uncles, my grandparents, or whatever, and like we were at a store or something, and a lady was coming, and I didn't hold the fucking door, I would have ended up hearing a ringing sound. As a big giant cup hand got me right in the freaking ear, like, and then like they would have like it never happened, but I saw it happen to one of my cousins because I opened the door because I saw it happen to one of my cousins. So he got clipped in the ear by my uncle, and then my uncle went and grabbed this woman and said, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm trying to teach this boy some manners. Would you mind coming back out here and going through that door again?"
Wow.
Yeah.
And he made him stand there and hold that door.
Yes.
And I'm like, so that's how I grew up, that's what you did. And it wasn't just like you really better do it for women, but it was manners. Like if you see somebody coming and you're holding the door, hold the freaking door until they walk through it. Now, I also do have kind of an issue with people like when you hold the door for them, they don't say thank you. Like they act like you don't even exist. I kind of feel like those are the people that you let into a lane and they don't wave and say thank you in the car. Like it should be legal to get up behind them and put them in the wall. Like that's like we should be decent to each other. My wife said today she let somebody into a fast food line when she's getting food for the kids, and when she got up to the window, the guy that was in front of her driving a Beamer paid for their meal because she let him in the line. And I was like, that's really cool. And listening to this, I'm just thinking like she came when she was all happy, like somebody just did that because I was nice. And I'm like, you know, now I'm just thinking there's probably some women out there in this woke crowd that would be like, he thinks he's better than me or some shit, like because they did something nice. It's like you can't even be nice to people anymore.
Is that what these maniacs actually think? Like they believe that? Is that true?
Well, they do. And here's the thing. Somebody in the comments just said, I'll open the door for a woman, and if she gets all butthurt about it, that's not what they said. But if she gets all butthurt about it, that's a good filter for me. Honestly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
like, yeah, exactly.
There will not be a second
yourself with the person you're seeing, there's no point in going on. There's
People say
point.
things
and if
online
yourself
they
is
would
somebody
never say
who
in real life.
agrees that we should be in a mutually beneficial relationship where we help each other, then a freaking door shouldn't be the thing that gets in your way.
Yeah.
Nothing I think it's offensive if a gentleman's walking in front of me and he doesn't hold the door. I find it offensive.
I mean, to Jack's point, anybody. If I'm at a gas station and there are people walking into the door and I'm there, I either hold it for them so they can get through. If I have to pee, I'm running through the door. If it's somebody who looks a little frail, though, I'm going to wait for them to get through. It doesn't matter the gender.
It's operating with respect and integrity for your own self. Like, that's really all it is. But
go ahead.
I get offended by that myself. I find it offensive. I'm like, but this is where we're headed with all of this dehumanization. I mean, you're talking about the universities. Why are people not going to the universities? Why are we going to allow them to program our men? I'm not allowing them to program my young man. I'm not going to do it. We're raising real men here.
Well, I think there's like all of the stuff we've been talking about has to do with the university thing we started with, but I think there's other things going on there. Like, so we've literally so commercialized the college industry that we have like 75% of people in this country go to college, at least some. And that's stupid because I'm telling you, if you get 20 people in a room together and start talking to them, you're not going to find 14 of them that are smart enough or have the aptitude for the type of thing you go to college for. And that's why we have degrees in college now that have no purpose. And I think part of it is markets are going to, like, part of this is just good old fashioned markets are going to market. And they're just like, people are figuring out like, there's no point. Like, even if you take all the wokeism out of it, why am I going to go get a degree in communications or liberal arts or French literature or whatever? Well, what I really want to do is work on cars or weld and there's all these trades that we need people to do that pay really freaking good. And guys tend to like, there are guys that like to put the power suit on like X and go to the office and whatever. And there's guys like me. I did it, but I made money doing it, but I was always happier like out in the field doing work, like running, even if I wasn't doing like the manual labor itself, like, hey, it actually is kind of intellectually challenged to figure out how am I going to get a piece of fiber optic cable from Azle, Texas to Fort Worth without breaking anything? Crossing highways.
Dude,
like that's
well,
like
I feel personally attacked by that remark. My degree in German and music have been 100% helpful to me my entire career.
I can't think of a thing that I learned in AP calculus that I've ever used in real life. I don't. And so what was I going to do? Go to college and study more of this useless skill? Now, if you want to be a physicist, fucking go to college. If you want to be in like the STEM fields or a lawyer or a doctor or an aerospace engineer or something where there's a legitimate pathway from this education into that, great. But then we would have what, 25, 30, 40% top going to four-year universities.
Like the country I know of, Germany, where college is free.
Yeah, it's not free.
Not everybody gets into college.
No.
They have three systems, right? They have college, they have like trade schools.
Yeah.
And they have another, I guess, two kinds of
military,
trade schools. There's
right?
like professional school and then trade school. So there's three systems. And if you want to be an electrician, you're going to go to a trade school, not to college.
Look, we've been under
If
attack.
you're going to be a plumber, you're going to go to trade school and you're going to make decent money. I mean, they make decent money here as well.
Well, the corporatocracy is collapsing, so there's no use for any of those fake jobs, which is the reason why nobody's going to college. You only go to college to get a job. I told my kids that. I said, if you want to get a job, then you have to go to college. But we don't need you to get a job. We need you to make money. So that means that you need to learn how to do something that is, and listen. Yeah, like, so my son, honestly, he really, really, if he was going to want to go to university, he wanted to go to MIT because he loves to MacGyver stuff, right? Like, he's very much into hands-on engineering type things that he can't articulate because he doesn't even know all of the possibilities. Like, he would like to go. He's 17. Mm-hmm. So he was with us, and I introduced him to, Congressman Thomas Massey when we've been doing these road food events. He's been there, and Thomas Massey graduated from MIT. So Covey's been talking to him, and he's seeing what he's doing because what has Congressman Massey done? He's living off grid. He built his entire home from scratch. he keeps coming up with like really cool innovations on his land so that he can farm while he's in DC, while he's fighting for, like, while he's being a good oath keeper, you know. And so he was able to see like a glimpse, and he's like, I do want to learn how to do that. And I'm like, okay, so like, why don't you learn how to work with some entrepreneurs and then see what you want to learn how to do, or, you know, you'll come up with better ideas. Then when you go to MIT, then you would be able to focus on what's useful.
Yeah, and I was kind of joking earlier when I said that thing about my degree in German and music. I actually monetized that shit. But I went to college before it got ruined by the incredible amount of subsidy coming in from the federal government to make it so everybody can go to college and end up out of college and in debt. I went at a time when you could still come out. I came out with like master's program, $4,000 total dollars for the whole thing. Not a problem to pay off and done. People a decade after me were coming out with $20,000 in debt, and people a decade after that are coming out
$50,000.
Yeah, I know somebody who had 50. It's crazy. So
it is crazy.
I've pinned a comment up here. One issue with boys, they're being drugged out with drugs and told, I don't know what the rest of that was. One thing brought up in that article is that part of why boys don't go to college is they basically don't want to. And that means that it's because they don't pay attention in the school.
Somehow they turn that article into why boys are bad. That's
I mean, it's well, it's just like having been around some children of different genders, there are different, and I've noticed different energy levels in the genders. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. And if you have an entire educational system that is built around training compliance, where children and boys are made to sit in classes for hours and not allowed to move around, which is what children need to be doing. Yes, it's going to benefit the ones who are more able to control themselves and sit down. And that is what it is. And then you are going to have this result. It's a crime what we do to our children in the government schools. It's a crime.
It's child abuse.
It all goes back to communism.
Yes, it does. Thank you, X.
It really does, though, right? Because in the 70s and in the 80s, it was like the demoralization of the United States. And it started with people like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds funding Planned Parenthood, funding feminism, funding these ideologies that were shifting the country really drastically until people became confused as to what their roles are in society. And we are creatures who live in fantasy and live in story and frame our experiences in story. And when those stories get fucked with, we start exploring new things, and our responsibilities go off kilter, and nobody knows what they're supposed to do.
Amen.
There's a lot in the word stories in that. I think that our traditions come through stories. Everything that I know about my family, I know because I wasn't told a fact like we learned in school about history. It's because I was told a story.
And you could live in it.
And we should be teaching history as stories. I've been talking to my grandson about that. One of his subjects he doesn't really like is history. And I'm like, you have to start seeing it as a story because you like stories. And it is through our stories that we pass down not just facts, but traditions, and that we create heroes is not the right word. Role models is what I'm looking for. So I want to be like my great uncle Pete, who was a staff sergeant in World War II, served in the European theater in Italy, and told me stories not just of war, but like the bad things of war and the little things that they would do, like the fact that like they only had so much soap, but you would see these people that had nothing and they wanted soap, not food, soap. Like you're pretty desperate when you're asking somebody for soap, and like, you know, they would all break their bar of soap in half and give away half a bar to these people. Like I want to be like him. And without that story, if he just said, you know, in Europe we used to give away during World War II half of our bar of our soap, but actually telling me the story made me want to be like him. Yeah. And when we start taking away the stories of our own family's ancestors, but the ancestors that founded our country and built our culture, and we start villainizing those people, we're robbing society of that. And I'm not sure, but I just feel in my gut with hearing X say that and thinking this way, it might be more important to males than females to get it that way. Women have a different way that they communicate with each other. They have, like, I tell my wife sometimes that she's going to be one of her girlfriends. It's hen time, and you need some hen time, and they have a different way they do things like that, and that's okay. And I think men, we're making that transition from boy to adolescent male to man. We need that stretch to try to be more than we can be. And if we look to our past and we're told that everybody before us sucks, then what are we going to strive to become?
Right.
Not like them, which that just means we have no direction. It's like telling somebody, go to Philadelphia, here's a map. And you go, well, where am I? I don't pick a spot. Yep. Like, it can be a great map. It can tell you exactly where Philadelphia is, but if you don't know where you are and how you got to where you are, how the fuck can you figure out where to go? And I just feel like that's a perfect description of, especially like 15 to 25 right now. Like, that's, you don't know where you are. You don't know where you got, how you got there. You don't know what came before you. And how the hell can you possibly know where you're going? And everything you're being told about where you need to go is like deranged lunatic bullshit. Like, you have like, I'll talk to somebody and they're like, well, I'm 24 and I got my first job and they're making good money. And they're like, I don't really like it. And I'm like, well, why not? Well, I don't feel like I'm really doing anything meaningful for the world. Bitch, you need to get some experience. You need to wake up and apologize. You're lucky you're making money. Like, shut up and work.
You know what? Taking care of yourself and your family is doing something meaningful in the world.
But we don't believe that, right?
That's what it is. Wait. Let me chime in here, because this is something that directly I feel a lot of. I'm not doing enough in the world. I've got my family on lock, my business on lock. Like, I started out there trying to fix the world, and it was totally out of balance because my own shit was not in balance. And then once I got all that in balance, I'm like, okay, now I want to go. I want to make a difference. And it stems from guilt, right? And it's not white guilt. It is guilt of having, when I know that there are billions of people who don't have shit and don't even have an opportunity. And if I'm succeeding or benefiting from that, and they're suffering, then I'm not benefiting. I can feel them, right? So there is this desire that everybody's being born and feels like, I want to contribute and make something meaningful, because at the fundamental core of things are pretty fucking shitty right now, and they don't want to be a part of that. At least that's my projection. So I get it. And at the same time, yes, be thankful that you have something. Be thankful that you enjoy what you have, because it's a fucking gift.
And like guys our age, like me and X, like we're like the old bull elephants, right? And they're trying to kill us off. And I don't know if you guys know the story of the elephants, but when they poached and killed all the elephants in Africa, all of a sudden something started happening in villages and all, as they started protecting them and the population started coming back up that had never happened. And it was mostly young male elephants, like adolescent elephants, like a teenage elephant. But a teenage elephant is still like, a gazillion pounds and can like smash you into the ground. And they started running around like gangs do and going into villages and grabbing like natives and like smashing them in the ground and destroying shit. And this didn't make any sense, because humans and elephants had always had, interactions and conflict, and an elephant's a dangerous animal, and you can piss off a cow because you're too close to her calf and you can get rubbed out like an ant in the ground. And that happens. But roving gangs of adolescent male elephants going into villages and killing people for fun, not typical. And as the conservation efforts started working and there started to be old bulls again, it stopped all by itself. And it took them time to figure out what was going on. And what happens in elephant society, and they have a society. That's why I'm a hunter. I won't hunt elephants ever. I will never take an elephant's life. An animal that mourns its dead, I'm not killing. I'm not fucking doing that, right? I'm sorry. And so all of a sudden, what they realized is there were these, what they call them bachelor herds. And what happens is at a certain time of the year, when the females are pregnant, but they're not ready to drop their calves yet. So they don't really need, because a female elephant can protect itself unless she's got a calf or she's calving. So at that point, when everything was kind of done for the year for a break, the men would leave. If you weren't a little baby calf or a woman, you went off with the men. And the old bulls would kind of like knock around the young bulls when they pulled any bullshit, you know, kind of like my uncle smacking my cousin in the ear and making them let the lady through. And if they started doing stuff like the elephants, they're wise enough to understand, like, if we create conflict with humans, they'll come after us and we'll have a problem. And they started, like, they would kind of sort of, without being excessive, beat up the young men a little bit. And then they would bring them back to the women, and they would do this over and over again. And all the behavioral problems went away. Now, if you look,
that's what happened all the time with the. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jack.
No,
sorry.
no, I was just going to say, if you look at our society right now and the way young men are pussies, but they're also violent, right? That's that correlation. It should make your hair stand up a little bit on your arms to realize this is what we've done. We've emasculated. And so by emasculating the older men and relegating them to not being valuable anymore, old people are to be put away and ignored. And guys like me, that's just a crazy halfway old guy, right? And then, like, you separate the man from his cub and you push him off to the side. All he is a freaking support check. And you have this group of young males coming up through that. It's a dangerous time, 14 to 24, for a guy. His prefrontal cortex is not developed. He gets big arms. He can beat the shit out of people, but he doesn't know what he has. He doesn't know why he feels the way he feels. And he doesn't have the guidance of the older male to say, hey, cut that shit out. And then all of a sudden we have gangs roving the streets and fucking shit up and all. Like, the elephants told us everything we needed to know, but we don't, like, that would be science. And when we invoke science, we invoke a community, not a process. If we were following science, the elephants just told us everything we need to know to put society back into a way that at least makes sense most of the time.
Stop throwing men in jail for addiction problems.
Right, or stupid crap or
there.
whatever.
Keep fathers in the house, because we're ripping houses apart under the guise of trying to protect people from drug use, for example.
Right. For example. Just for
and that has disproportionately affected the black community. I'm sorry, it has, right?
It has.
That's not wrong to say that. It's factual to say that. And when I was a kid, if I did something, the trouble I would get into with my dad at home, if that was, let's say, a 5, if I had a friend that was a black kid when I lived in Jacksonville, and he did the exact same thing, the trouble he would have got in trouble with at his old man when he went home is like an 8, right? Yeah. Like, it was a very strict disciplinary, hey, we don't behave that way thing. But if you take that man out of that house, that young boy doesn't get that guidance.
Or the lift, or the you know, like the praise. So like, you know,
both.
Men are not allowed to go and hang out. You got all these lunatic women who don't, you know, you're talking about hen time or mother hen time or whatever. Like, when, you know, I feel like men need their time together too. Like, you know, you guys need to be able to go and just, you know, have a mancation or whatever it is that guys do sometimes. Because if you aren't able to have, you know, like when you take the older men with the younger men and let them go, just be wild, what do y'all do? You know, like, whatever it is that guys do, that's whatever that is, it's important. Like, but it's not encouraged. It's not something that's valued. And you can't learn everything out of a book. I'm sick and tired right now. I mean, that's my stance on this whole university thing, back to the topic of the university piece, if that even matters anymore. I mean, I'm like, you know, words don't teach, life experience teaches. And like what Jack's saying, you know, it's not always just a slap on the back of the head. Sometimes it's a hug. Sometimes it's a fist bump. Sometimes
but one makes the other work, right? That's what I'm thinking while you're saying that. Like, my tough ass great uncle, like, when I shot a deer in front of him that was running, and he's like, "What are you doing? You're not gonna," and boom, and I knocked it down, and he was like, "Good job." Like, that meant so much more to me because he wasn't afraid to criticize me. So when I got praise from those men for doing something right, it didn't matter if I got one praise for every 5 criticisms, right? It still mattered more because I knew if Uncle Pete said I did something right, I must have fucking done it right. Like, I earned that shit. And we're robbing young men of that by 2 ways. 1, taking the men away, but 2, telling the men you can't be tough on them.
Right.
So you realize that there is a concerted, intelligent effort to destroy family.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? To destroy the bonds, to destroy tribes, to destroy cohorts, to isolate the individual. That's what all is going on in
Dehumanization.
Yeah,
that's what all this is. It's
turning people into cattle. into,
Yeah.
and not even just cattle, but into robots. Robots come into the workforce, and then all of a sudden, that's why they're getting rid of gender, because it's dehumanization, because they're going to have to insure robots, figure out employment for robots, and that's a whole new class of beings now. Male, female, robot.
You gotta honor my gender choices, okay? So like,
Yeah, I'm an attack helicopter. My point here is that they've got no, like, there's no dignity for the human species any longer. Like, and it's actively being attacked and destroyed. And unless we have these conversations more at a societal level, we will lose it, and we will become little more than biological entities at that point, which is a fucked up.
And they've framed this discussion in such a way like that it's hard to have this discussion without people typecasting you as having a very extreme opinion about gender roles. When, you know, I think everybody on this conversation is coming from it. Your relationship is a balance, and men are better at some things and women are better at some things. And it's not about if you are this gender, you do X, Y, and Z. It's that we play to the strengths in a relationship, however that looks. You know, I like to say I'm the kind of feminist that existed before the current feminist came to be, where I think if a woman puts her mind to something, she can do it. And nobody should get in the fucking way of that. And if they do, I'm going to push you out, right? But
mutual respect.
At the same time, I also acknowledge on my homestead, the people who lift the heaviest things are not female. I had a 150-pound bag of coffee delivered into my shed today by a male. And it was, I can do it, but let me tell you, he can do it easier.
Yeah.
And I am not a domestic goddess. And the roles were flipped in my family for a period of time where things went bad for me. And my wife was carrying a lot of the financial weight. And that was a fucked up time for both of us. None of us enjoyed it, right? And then when things flipped back, it's like we're breathing again. And it's like, what? So it's like, I know what it's like to be on both sides of that discussion. And I find that, you know, miraculously, remarkably, you know, the biological system kind of fucking works.
A little bit, you know, and the best part about it is that when you honor it, then it works even better. But I mean, like even in the Wild West, you know, do you think that women didn't know how to sling a gun? Who do you think had the back of a man? When they were out there and it's just one couple in a wagon with their kids and everybody, who has their back? You know, do you think everybody didn't know how to do things? That doesn't mean that it just doesn't, like Nicole just said, like, I'm over here moving dead bodies all day long. Yes, they're livestock meat. Yes.
Let's qualify that statement.
I didn't know you were an undertaker.
I mean, I am lifting dead bodies. We're going through 10,000 pounds of dead bodies here all the time. I mean, I'm working out all day long with this meat. If I have a gentleman who's going to come and move a cooler for me, I'm going to let him, because by God, he can do it with 2 fingers while it takes me like my whole entire body to do it. But I'll do it. But that is not what the whole movement was about, ladies. If you're out there listening, let me just explain to you what actually happened. So in the 80s in North Carolina, my mom, a single mother, was, you know, being beaten to death by my deadbeat dad. Okay. And when we got rid of him, then he was too freaking stupid to sell the house and leave us out on the street. Thank God, because he was an idiot. But my mom couldn't, if he would have done that, she wouldn't have been able to purchase another home, as none of my friends whose parents were divorced moms could own a home, because women could not own real estate in North Carolina in the 80s. Did you know that? Did you know? It's true. My mother
Women could not own real estate in North Carolina?
In the 80s.
What?
No.
It's kind of crazy. I didn't know that.
I
know that during in the 60s, a woman couldn't get a credit card without
women
a husband.
or women.
Women couldn't. None of the after divorce, everybody was in an apartment. My mom was the only one in a house, and that was because my dad was a ding dong head. And thank God, the house was still in his name and everything. And during the 80s, she was finally able to own real estate. But when she sold that house, the only reason she had the power to sell it is because she was married to my dad, and they, you know, like, her name wasn't on the deed.
Yeah. So I know in Tennessee, women could own real estate, but if you were married, your name ended up not on the deed.
Well,
Only your
if you're
husband's
married-
name was on the deed, and it took some pushing, and that was definitely in the 80s here too, where if you were married, it was in your husband's name. Period. End of story.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's some fucked up shit.
she couldn't have owned real estate.
And then
And
also
so-
the credit history, and this was true in my mom's time because my mom and dad divorced. When my mom came out of that divorce, she had 0 credit history in her 30s, which
Yeah.
is like
Same
a
with my
death
mom,
sentence to getting anything done.
Wait, what?
Right.
Say that again.
No credit history. So all the
Oh.
credit cards they had together or whatever, and the houses they bought all
Yes.
went on his credit history, and she had nothing and had to build from
Right.
0.
Oh,
Which
she was.
So let's
yeah.
just chalk up all this gender confusion to like a good lesson learned to make everybody realize, oh, this is why things are the way they are. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm holding for it. Like, it's going to take a generation or two, but people are going to be like, yeah, we tried that shit and it didn't work. Back to business. That's what I'm hoping for, right? Someone made a comment earlier saying that there's no positive vision for humanity in the future right now. And culturally, economically, globally, there really isn't. There's no inspiring vision of the future. And right now, everybody's like, it's the fucking apocalypse. And frankly, it looks like that until we lay out what a positive vision looks like.
Yes.
But as we say, we
So-
should go back to some things. We should also learn from the things that didn't work. Like
Right.
one of the reasons that us men are getting screwed over today in divorces and child custody and all is because of how fucked women were back in like the 80s, the 70s, the 60s.
Yeah.
Like literally, like as the man, I control in a marriage in 1965. I controlled everything, and if my wife was like, "I want to get a divorce," I'm like, "You will have fucking nothing when you leave." And I was right, not right as in correct, as in being like
morally right.
Morally right. I mean, I was right as in technically right when I said that, and I could control my wife that way. Like, I'll go cheat on you. You can't do shit because you'll have nothing, and I'll have everything.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
And that's how we ended up in this position.
But this is the scumbag guy. The majority of men were not like that.
Well,
So So the majority of men. Well, okay,
go ahead,
listen.
X. You let X talk on this.
Just one thing. Can I just say one thing next? Okay, just one point. I will say I'm not going to say that there weren't people taking advantage of that, but what I will say is that most women's lib or the movement started not because women hated men. It started because if my husband dies, I have nothing, and the same thing happens for the husband. He knows that if I die, my wife has to have her brother or her father or somebody come in and step, like some family member has to stand for her. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And that was the reason. That was the reason for the movement. And there were men on board with that. It wasn't a man bashing, man hating.
No. But so anytime power corrupts, absolutely, whatever the phrase is. There was a period of time where men were in charge of everything, and like Jack was saying, it's like you try to fuck with me, I'll own you in everything that you have, right? And so women were literally in a subservient, economical lower class, and when that happens, sometimes people start feeling themselves a little too much, and they start running with it, and then next thing you know, they're really treating people poorly. So at the baseline of how everybody was dealing with life at that time and their roles in society, I mean. If you want to knock the white man for anything, it's literally for thinking that they are the most superior creature on the planet to the point where they will mistreat anybody who is not also a white man. Not only that, but they will also mistreat other white men that they perceive to be less than them. And it's that has fundamentally shifted. And that is a big reason why women were like, yo, fuck this noise. We don't. And then there were people there that would take that legitimate concern, just like Black Lives Matter. There's a legitimate concern there that police are taking young black men and putting them in prison industrial complex for absolutely jack shit.
Right.
And then there's a legitimate thing there. And then that flame is fueled with like, oh, we got a solution, right? We've got the Hegelian dialectic or whatever. That here's the solution, and it's to fuck over those who were oppressing you. And so now it's like, whoa, it's way out of whack. And
as opposed to just fixing the problem.
Correct.
Right.
I don't know. Stop throwing people in jail.
Yeah, stop putting people in jail for stupid shit. Like, it's just dumb.
Yeah. But the only thing I would disagree with the excellent stuff that X just said is this system set up so that the man had superiority was true in almost every culture. And it's still true in many cultures today around the world where the man is not white. I don't know if it's a white man thing. It's a male thing that, like, because we had the physical capacity to create a system that favored us, we did so. That's the real patriarchy, right? And like, if you want to talk about a chauvinistic society, look at China. Look at China. India. Oh, India, definitely, right? I won't speak on that.
I'm gonna tell you what, like, I just went there after, like, my husband and I went back after 25 years, a few years ago with the kids, and it was really disappointing how absolutely crass and disrespectful the men are to the women. We were at a 5-star hotel on New Year's Eve waiting for our flight. Like, we were flying out that night. And so we were trying to come home, and I'm in the lobby with my kids. Me and my mom are in the lobby with the kids. My kids are sleeping because it's like midnight. All those international flights are all stupid. Like, and so anyway, there's a whole bunch of drinking going on because it's New Year's Eve in the hotel. There's a bunch of folks like walking through from parties, coming in and out and whatever. And we're just trying to get on the bus to go to the airport. Anyway, these like total like a-hole guys are like, they block me in between there's the 2 doors to go outside, like they have that lobby door with the exterior door or whatever. I'm in there trying to tell my husband something because the kids are over here, and I'm trying to go back and forth between getting things on the bus and going back. And these guys like block me in that little corridor or whatever. And I'm like, excuse me, like, I get it. Y'all are partying because it's New Year's, Happy New Year. I need to get these suitcases out, like that's what I'm trying to do. Some dude put his hands on me, and I was like about to kickbox him. Well, all his homeboys were backing him up. That would not happen here. If a dude put his hands on me here, his homeboys
90% of the time it would not happen.
Yeah,
there's places where it would.
Right, 90% of the time. Yeah, 90% of the time, most of the other dudes would be like, "Yo, brother, what you doing?" She's like, calm down.
Yeah, respect the woman. Yeah.
Yeah, they would have said something. Not in India. Not in India.
Right.
That's
China,
the reason why
or
women.
Middle East.
I'm confused. Then that must mean that India is run by white males.
No.
Yeah, so I made a mistake. How about that?
It's run by. It's run by all the slaves of the British India Company, who those are the ones who are the elders right now, or the old slaves of the British India Company, which were our parents, right? So they don't know.
The head slaves, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, like, people over here think that we don't know what slavery is. Your mama and daddy were not slaves. Mine were. And they're still over there. Like, they're super, super disciplined. I mean, they're super compliant. That Indians and Chinese people aren't the most brilliant people in the world. They're the most compliant people. They're very well trained.
Some very smart motherfuckers, both countries. But yeah.
Overall, yeah, there is more compliance because it's cultural. Right. I mean, the Japanese culture was very male hierarchy. Most African cultures were very male hierarchy. I can't think of a culture that wasn't. Like, the closest you would get would be like Greek and Roman.
Even the Greeks.
I'm not saying they were perfect, but they were closer to what you would want. I mean, Roman and Greek society, women had a lot of recognition.
They could own land.
Yeah,
businesses.
Yeah.
In fact,
women
in charge
still not own. I don't think women can still really own businesses without a man in India. As far as, I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so.
I think you are. I think that women can own a business there, just because I know a lot of really empowered Indian people.
Well, if a man thinks he's a woman in India and he's trans, is it really a woman or a man owning the business in India?
I think they will actually get murdered over there. Like, there's no political correctness over there. There is no.
Same in China.
So you're saying we should take all of the social justice warrior, avocado toast eating, $10 coffee drinking, chippies in America and send them to India to fix a real problem? Is that what you're saying? Because I was thinking Saudi Arabia was the place to send them for that shit. Like, where they take gay people and throw them off buildings. I thought that was an actual problem, you know.
I mean, in India, they still throw women. In India, they still throw women into the middle of the street who've, you know, been raped because they're filth now. They're like, you know, they're thrown in the middle of the street. So no. And someone just said that women can own businesses over there. Are you sure? I know women run businesses over there, but are they in their names or are they in the names of their daddies or their brothers? I just want to know, because I can talk to my cousin but when my cousin's sister had her business there, it was with, I'm pretty confident it was in her dad's name. I mean, legally, it was a family business that she ran, but I'm not sure right now.
I'm thinking it might have more to do with caste systems than sex.
Yeah. Well, you're right. The caste system is also a piece of it, but I don't care what caste you're at. If you're raped and whatever, unless, you're in the middle of the street probably somewhere.
The internet says that women can own a business in India, and only 14% of women, though, do so. Whatever that means.
Okay, and I wonder since when. I would be wanting to know, like, since when.
And that's DuckDuckGo, not Google, so it might be right.
DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGoose is what it should be.
Yeah,
it should be.
We need a new verb for Googling something because we're not using Google anymore.
We kind of flipped out on this. Are we going to talk about underground networking?
Absolutely. You guys are going down this path, and I thought, well, that was interesting. It has nothing to do with men in college, but it's
people are
really
talked about before. It's how we don't care about college.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, there's a college near me where when I become a certain age, I can go to classes for free. And I'm probably going to take advantage of that because there are classes I want to take.
Yeah. How old do you have to be? You're as old as me. What the hell? Like you don't qualify yet? What do you got to be like?
I don't. I'm not. I got 15 more years.
What?
Or so. Yeah.
How do you want to learn?
And finally, I take the free classes, and hopefully there'll be some good classes left by then.
I don't think there's any good teachers hardly anymore. It's very difficult to find.
I meet good teachers, so I think they're there. They're there, but college, if you're going to go into it, you need to know what you're getting out of it. That's for sure.
I think about taking a few courses once in a while just so I can be a pain in the ass there.
Yeah.
I think that's wrong.
I don't think you're there going to
Okay, let's get into underground networking. The idea for this, it's something I've been playing with as I'm taking. So we all have communities, right? Like Jack has a community, Neethi has a community, Hawk has a community, I have a community, Unloose the Goose has a community, and we all end up in kind of our little pods. And what's been really fun to watch, especially with like freedom cells and all these other things that come up, is the cross-pollination of these communities. And the reason I thought of this topic is there's an underground community that's sort of bubbling where there's the public facing thing, and then there's the underground trade that's starting to happen and mutual support and those sorts of things. So when you hear the word underground community, how would you define that? What do you think of? And we'll start with Xavier since he looks like he might be frozen. So,
well, quite literally, I think about the people who survived the last Ice Age underground. But in today's contemporary society, underground communities started at the end of the 1900s. Basically in response to the beast that is society, that is a governmented society and civilization. Like we have the prime narrative, which everybody's supposed to follow, which has now completely been, laid bare as a huge lie, and everybody's starting to wake up. So now what our underground communities have been are starting to become the house and the seed, the pod for what will become the next baseline for civilization.
Okay.
Love how you worked baseline in there.
Baseline everywhere.
Baseline.
Jack, underground network, underground community.
I think an underground network is basically any group or interaction, any network of people that are working together that can't be seen from the surface, right? So that, like, you could do a little bit of analysis, get in some social media places and figure out, like, within Jack Spirko or Nicole Sauces or X's or Neethy's networks, like, these are people that are in there. And then you could maybe see some things that are going on. But the vast majority of what's going on is a lot like, one of my favorite critters, the ant. You've got the ant hill, and most of the stuff's actually happening in the tunnels below. And so even though, like, I don't think it would be a big leap for anybody out there that's watched what's gone on with me over the years to say, well, Jack and Nicole are part of a network that is meshed together, but they don't know what the hell Jack and Nicole are really doing, right? Like we might have some kind of a deal going on between each other, or we might actually more typically be like, I know somebody and she knows somebody, and her somebody needs something and my somebody has something, and it really doesn't benefit us directly. And we just kind of go, you two people do this thing. And then, like, it never happened, or maybe it's up to them to disclose that. And, like, that ability to hand each other off and hand people off and make connections, to me, that's your underground network. Like, we're all influencers here. And then we have, within our networks, we have influencers. And some of those influencers are influencers in the same vein we are. They're on the internet, they have shows, they have platforms or whatever. But a lot of us also have influencers that you will never see, that you will never know. You just, like, they're the Buddy Shoemaker from my childhood, the guy that made homemade wine in my little town. Like, he could get anything done. And today, maybe it's me that connects him to somebody that's not part of that small town, right? And so I can make things happen by connecting people together. But who really makes it happen is the person you don't see, the quiet. And what we're doing, in a way, in a much more beneficial to humanity way, is we're emulating the banking system and the oligarchs, right? Because you think, like, because you know who the chairman of the Fed is or whatever, you think is in control. The people that actually control all that shit, you'll never see them. You never know who they are. They're worth billions of dollars. You don't know their names. If they walked next to you down the street, you wouldn't know who they were, right? And we're kind of doing the same thing into where we can connect people. Maybe we're the figureheads, and then we have all of these other people that actually do the things, and what things you don't get to know because it's underground and you're above ground. So screw. Like, I think that's a big part of this.
Neethy, what are your thoughts on the topic?
I like what everybody said. I feel like you guys have said a lot of it already. I really do agree with what Jack's saying in the sense of, you never know what influencers that you don't really know who I'm working with. And it seems like everything I'm doing is only working with, like, maybe farmers, when actually that's really not true. So, there's a lot of other parts and pieces that are going on in the background. When you're building an alternate universe like we are, like I am anyway. I think we are.
Do underground networks work if they're only digital relationships?
No, I just met with an underground digital network in real life, IRL, and it's all based around liberty and standing up and actually taking legal correct action, like looking into the school board, looking into the local, like actually putting people together and saying, here are some tasks that we can do to clean up our local community, our local representation. And that was super inspiring for me.
Mm-hmm. I don't enjoy just these superficial type. I mean, I guess it's not really superficial. It feels superficial until you meet them in real life. I like to do those kind of things in real life. I make an effort. Like, I really want to come down to Texas, Jack, but, like, I can't come right now. So.
Yeah, Nicole often says this, Jack too, like, it's one thing to listen to us, to interact with us on Telegram or in our chat rooms, but it's another thing to actually have FaceTime, because that it builds, like, bonds. Like, I have regular calls with people in my community on Zoom, just to connect and, like, be real people, listen to their stories and stuff. But to actually go to an event together and bond in that way creates something that lasts forever, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, my community, I see them every week. People are coming here every single week. So in fact, I only started doing more online stuff after COVID. I never even thought about Zoom, or whatever, until after that. And so, which I appreciate. It's nice to talk to people around the world. But I value my local peeps, man, or not just local. I'll go out of my way to go places.
I think one leverages the other, though, right? So, like,
Yeah.
you could have this person that's doing wonderful things in real life, like Neethi, and maybe she can't come be with us, right? Because she's far away or she's got so much going on. But if we're able to gather, like, she has a problem, and then I don't know the answer, but somebody within my network, either virtual or real life, can give me the answer, and then they don't really know Neethi, but I pass that information on to Neethi, and then Neethi can use that, and then that benefits her entire like pod, right? Her little squad that she's got going on over there. And then, like she said, it's not just farmers. Well, if you're dealing with farmers, you're dealing with customers. Well, customers could be like a doctor that realizes, like, I want my family to be healthy. So now there's a doctor in your network, right? Or you have a lawyer that's tired of the bullshit and he wants to feed his family healthy food. And now you got a doctor and a lawyer in your network, right? And like that just keeps building, because for every farmer, there's a dozen or so people buying that one farmer's products. And all of those people do a thing, and they all have a skill, and they all have a knowledge, and they all have a skill set. Well, they also all have another network of their own. Doctors know doctors know nurses, doctors know real estate people because they need office space. Doctors know lawyers because they need lawyers. And then each one of those, it's a lot like John's, freedom cells, except they're not intentionally organized. They're organized by happenstance. If you are a doctor that runs a practice with 5 other doctors and you employ 20 nurses, that's a pretty good sized group of people right there. Well, you also need supplies, you need real estate, you need legal advice, you need insurance. You see what I mean? Like, and this all completely magnifies each other on top of it. And then having people that understand the power of that, because a lot of times people are in a huge network, they don't even know it. They don't even realize the power of what they have. It's like a person, in some ways it can be dangerous, because like a person having a gun and not understanding it's a gun. Like, you need to know what to do with the power that you have. And I think that a lot of time influencers, what we do, maybe we're not as ingrained in IRL, right? And doing it because we're filling a different purpose. We are like a hub in the network, and we have all these little networks around us. And then so I'm doing that, Nicole's doing that. And then there's like a VPN between Nicole and I. And then there's like a cross-pollination, but there's also parts that will never come together. And then they all benefit and they all grow. That's how kind of I see that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been the strength of. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Nikki.
I was just saying that, yeah, God, what would we do without our underground network that we have? I don't know, man. It's been everything for me, like everything. And like what Jack was saying, that is how I'm growing. I have a holistic physician who joins, and she brings her 10 physician friends who bring their entire practices, and, so on and so forth. And that's just one. What about like my mechanic who brings all his clients who get their car fixed?
And the way I see the underground network unfolding is that we all kind of had one before crisis or time hit, where everything's a crisis right now, even when it's not a crisis. And there have been some really draconian things that have happened in the US society, all over the world as well. And it has led to the need to tap into real trusting relationships, to be able to do things that used to be easy, that we could do in everyday life, that some of us cannot do anymore without the real relationships. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk to that about today, because what I see as important, and I wish John Bush was on today because of his whole freedom cell thing, but what I see as important is that we continue to foster the underground networks that are getting stronger and stronger and stronger because they're needed, right? It's
Have you noticed that social circles used to be about having fun or like just meaningless kind of socializing? Now
Yeah.
it's like there almost isn't room for that. All these social circles and underground networks are like objective based. I want to learn, or I am, with wilderness skills people, or I am prepping skills people. Like those are networks now. It's like these networks are purpose driven
Yeah.
rather than like frivolity driven. And I think that's because psychically everybody's becoming aware, like, oh shit, the social contract and all of these things that we've sort of skated by thinking are just, we take for granted now are going away, and we're having to start figuring out these things really rapidly, right?
Yeah. And by the way, I'm busting somebody's chops in comments for asking if we are libertarian. That's me busting your chops, just for the record. It's not out of defensiveness. It's out of love, because that filter right now matters not to me. I
Not
care
at
not
all.
where you are
You
politically.
see this right here?
And even to be in the underground network I work with, if you are a liberal and in my underground network, that means you support my decision, my right to choose what I put in my body, among other things. If I'm going to expose myself to risk by going barefaced out in the public, if you support my right to make that choice, whether or not you agree with that, we're good. We've got a core understanding of where your opinion stops in regards to where it comes into my life. I don't like to label. I'm done with that. I've seen too many relationships end this year, like marriages that were 15 years long ending over where are you politically. So, that's why I'm busting your chops right now.
But you know
and
what's
that
interesting
doesn't
about
have
that?
space in the underground network. We've got to have a shared value system rather than worry about what we call ourselves in the day-to-day bullshit that's going on in the news.
We do not participate in the live.
Check out solarpunksummit.org or .com. And I had a great conversation with her yesterday, and it's about, we put aside all of our political differences when we start building something together. When we're sitting here focusing on what's wrong, that's where people get into fights. Right. But if we get creative and build together, all that shit goes away. And I've noticed I haven't rejected any of my liberal friends. I've been rejected by my liberal friends, and I'm not even a conservative or, a righty or whatever. So it's interesting, like in the relationships, Nicole, the ones that have been destroyed because of politics, is it usually the liberal leaving the conservative?
Something like that. Like I've heard divorces over one party not getting the stick, and the other party thinks their spouse should get the stick, and they have the stick, and the spouse doesn't want to get the stick, and it has broken up the marriage. Like, that's ridiculous. It's like, really, what was your marriage
really
based
sad.
on?
I mean,
like,
that is
you can't let your spouse have like decision-making autonomy over their own body.
That's a doomed marriage. That was just the
right.
All
sorts. It's funny because I'm not getting it at this time. I'm not completely closed to the idea, although I become more close to it the more I learn about it. But I just wanted to give it time to see how it would all turn out, right? And then, like, almost everybody in my family has it. And you know how much that matters in our day-to-day relationships with each other?
Absolutely fuck all.
Goose egg. Don't care. I'm glad nobody had negative side effects. That's all I am. Because I was worried about the negative side effects. But goose egg, and it shouldn't.
It couldn't have mattered all this big long time, and it can't matter going forward. I mean, I think that a lot of people think that, what we're saying, or I mean, I know, like, I'll just speak for myself. Like, if I'm saying something about my opinion about whatever this is, that means that you're supposed to agree with me. I'm not seeking your agreement. What I am seeking is for you to stay out of my way. If I'm doing something, then I have to be able to do it. And you just do whatever you want to do, because I'm not going to stop you or judge you or care about you. I should have been wearing my shirt that says I don't care.
I don't care.
Because I don't care. I cannot care about you more than you care about yourself. I can only care about myself. And that is all. But the moment that you try to come between me and my body, you're out of your mind.
But let's go back to underground networks. So part of why I wanted to talk about this is people want to know, okay, I hear about these underground networks. They sound kind of cool. I don't think I'm in one right now. Like, I know, because this is what went down in Tennessee. We had one town in particular just get hosed by flooding. In 7 minutes, water went from kind of heavy in the street to all the way up to roofs of houses. Okay.
Wow.
People died. And somebody in our network had their house knocked off its foundation. And
Wow.
it's a double wide, so it's something that can be put back on the foundation without a lot of trouble. But you need jacks that can lift like 30,000 pounds, right? And so they reached out to me and said, after I talked to them, they said, if people are willing to come out and help, will they come out and help? And I was like, well, let's see who will come help. And they said, but we really need our jacks. And so then I contacted a few people directly and said, do you have a house jack? And one of them did, one of them didn't, but knew somebody. And by the end of it all, within about 3 days, that person had more jacks than they could possibly need. I think about 10 people showed up, and they jacked up that house and rebuilt the foundation and then spent the rest of the day gutting it so it wouldn't mold. That's the underground network to me. That's, you can get anything you need. There's enough trust there that you're willing to loan your expensive house jack to somebody to go do it. And people are willing to put real time in to provide actual help to the person who needs somebody, not just, throw some money at the frickin' Red Cross and hope it eventually some of it makes to wherever it needs to go. Right. That to me is the power of the underground network. And the more of that we build, the better and more stable everybody is. So how do people get from where they are now, where they might be feeling like the marketing campaign is working, people feel isolated? How do we go from that to, I have a network I'm pretty sure I can tap into and we can all help each other?
Yep. Yeah, like put up or shut up. And be real. We're looking for real people. That's what I'm always looking for anyway.
Well, I don't know. What Nicole's saying is a little different than that. She's saying more there's people that are looking for this.
Oh.
And they're willing to put up, but they don't know a person, right? They don't know anybody. And I think part of that is you got to start with where you are and grow where you're planted, right? Like I have a network of people that don't give two shits about the survival podcast. Like they're like, people listen to you on the internet. Like they don't even understand. Like you make a living podcasting. And they're like, I'm like, you listen to podcasts? They're like, yeah, not yours. And then they're like, but
not yours.
Like all the podcasts I listen to, the people that do them don't make money doing it. They're like, listen to a sports podcast, two guys talking about, Texas Tech or something. And they're like, they don't even understand, like, you could actually make a living. And then everyone's like, you mean like Joe Rogan? Like, not like Joe Rogan, because I wouldn't live here if it was like Joe Rogan and you wouldn't know me. I'd be on the island of Jakistan, right? But yeah, they don't even understand it. So I have a network like that has nothing to do with, because people say, well, of course Jack or Nicole has a network. But in some ways, we have incredibly valuable networks that are just, this guy lives next door to me, and when he needed something, I helped him. And that's what I grew up with in the small town I grew up with in Pennsylvania. And the guy I just mentioned, Buddy Shoemaker, the guy that made homemade wine, this guy could make a phone call. You need something? I remember one time I needed a part for a car, and I couldn't find one that I could afford. He's like, you worked for Muskrat Purcell, didn't you? And I'm like, well, yeah, I did for a while. He goes, he should remember you worked for him. You're a good boy. Let me make a phone call. He's like, I got you one for $30. And I'm like, that bastard said it was 75, and I don't have 75. I got 30. And he's like, he'll do what I tell him. What? He was a mafia boss or something, but it wasn't through coercion. It was just like, well, if freaking Buddy asked, then I'm gonna do it. Right. Yeah. And that's how these good old boy networks, the best ones, really work. Is this is a guy that made 8 bottles of wine for my daughter's wedding. If he asks me something, I'm going to do it. And I think that we need to understand that we all have these unique skills and attributes. And then you got to value people in your network for the strengths they have. Because somebody that can show up and jack up a trailer has one attribute, and that's valuable. And the fact that they'll do it and they'll take their time to do it. But you might have somebody else that they can get you, like a Nicole, that can get you more people than you need to do it with jacks in hand by making a phone call or sending an email.
But I won't do that for everybody.
What you won't
And
do exactly? You won't do it. Of course not.
There's an investment required. So what we're saying, guys, is that our networks didn't happen in 1 second. I mean, we have been investing a lot of time and energy and love in people around us, which is how we've established these relationships. You know, there's an investment required, and I mean, I don't know, like Nicole, we were just in Tennessee together, taking a class together.
yeah.
You know, I mean, to me, we went through a lot in those 3 days. 4 days. Actually, we ended up spending a week together.
Yeah, when are we going to take that class again?
I know we need to take it again. So, I mean, but like, you know, you could just, we didn't just take this class together. We like rented a place together. We slept in the same place for a couple of nights together. We hung out, you know, and then we went from there, and we actually ended up going to Rogue Food Conference after that. But so we got to inevitably spend an entire week together. We got to really know each other a lot, you know, I think. And I'm just saying, like, all of these relationships that we have in our networks,
and this is a point here that Tactical Redneck Equipment has said, you're probably in one and you haven't realized it yet.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely true. The way you get involved in an underground network is you start participating in networks as yourself and with a mindset of what can I bring to the table, not what can I take from the network. And if you do that and you are able to develop real strong relationships, you don't know what you don't know unless you ask. And when something comes up and you need to ask, then that's when you find out if your network has the thing, you know, can make a house jack come out, right? But at the same time, if you don't invest the time in developing trusting relationships, you never get to that network part. And I think, you know, Jack said it depends if it needs to be digital or in person. I think digital is a great way. For me, it's like top of the funnel. But when we get the in-person relationships, that's where I see you. We look in each other's eyes. We probably have some trust developed online already. And then I'm able to say, okay, I'm willing to take the risk to recommend your event or to help you find that house jack, because I know you're actually going to be there at 9:00 on Saturday when you say you are, and you're not going to steal it, or all of those other things. That's how I get there. But if Jack had called me and said, I've got somebody who needs a house jack in Tennessee and they're good people, would you help them out? Because I know Jack.
Done.
Doesn't matter.
Vice versa.
So I don't need to know the person per se, but there has to be, for me, a real connection, or we're never getting anywhere. Because I'm not just, if somebody just emails me and says, hey, Nicole, you got that house jack and I've never met you before.
Here's how you build
Especially if you
your
call me hun in that email. Don't call me hun. Don't like it.
If you want to build a local network, email the 40 people you know the best that are near you and say, 2 weeks from now, I'm moving and I really, really need help. I mean, I am in a bad way and I need somebody to come help me move. And then have people basically say they'll come. And whatever number of people say they'll come, go to the store and buy at least that number of the best fucking ribeye steaks you can get your hands on. And a fucking lobster tail to go with them. And some really badass drinks and beer and shit like that. And when they show up, say, we're not really moving. And I've prepared this all for you, and we're going to just all sit around and talk. And if it's 4 people or 6 people and you send out 40, those are the 4 or 6 people that if you call them in the middle of the night and say, I'm stuck in fucking jail, I need somebody to get me out, those are the ones that are going to come do it. And then use that as your core and build your network off that. And people think like, oh, that's funny and, you know, quirky and all, and everybody knows the people who will help you. I'm not fucking kidding.
No.
I guarantee you, anybody out there, if you did that, the next day, you know the people that can count on you, and you know the people that you can count on you, and you know the people that better be able to count on you. And you make that core. Mm-hmm. You know, and then I think about people like that spent their whole life doing it without doing it with intention, like Buddy Shoemaker, like my grandfather. If they had done that, they would have went poor, right? Because they would have like I need a fucking cow, right? Like, and I need a lobster boat to fill this idea, because everybody would have showed up. But if you want to know, ask them to come help you move in 2 weeks. And the ones that show up, take good care of them and build from there. Or like somebody posted, Nicole brought up the comment about, do canning classes or whatever and see who shows up. And I think that's a great way to build community. And then communities build networks. Like, do things, set up things that have a commonality of things you have interest in. Yeah. I always taught with sales, lead with the relationship, right? Like, so don't worry about whether or not this person will buy your computer hardware or whatever. Like, lead with the relationship. Can you get along with them? So like, if you set up like canning classes, gardening classes, anything like that, the common ideals that we all kind of already move around, and you put it out on Nextdoor and Facebook local and whatever, and then you find a venue, whether it's your house or someplace that you can do this, like a publicly available venue. The people that come there, you have something in common. Right. And then don't try to make it happen. Just see what happens.
Let it happen.
Like, I was talking to Nicole this week and last week as I'm getting ready for my fall workshop and going, there's so much shit that happens at my workshop. I was like, when the fuck do we do this? Tell your story in 5 minutes. Because I'm trying to make the schedule and I'm going through all my past schedules. And I'm like, I know we do this shit. We do this shit like every year for like, I don't know how many years now. It's never been on my schedule. It's like her and fucking David and other people just do it and they make it happen. And it's like, by setting up the thing and then understanding like there's certain things I need to do. Like, I'm taking people's money. I need to feed them. I need to take care of them. I need to not be the enforcer of the rules, just the source of the rules. And then give people freedom to like do things. And like the shit that's come out of these workshops that I do and Nicole does it's insane. But if we tried to control every aspect of it, Nicole, it wouldn't happen.
No, it wouldn't happen. And, where you put it on your schedule is probably not where it's really going to happen. So
no, it's not.
So just don't put it.
Right.
I'm kidding myself. Right. I'm kidding myself. Like, I don't need to worry about that.
Jack, you were stepped out.
Well, and I think the other thing is go to things. So Xavier brought up the Solar Punk Festival. Jack's got his workshop coming up. And people hear about these opportunities and they're introverts and they're like, I don't want to be around people. And I'm like, you know what? I'm an introvert. I'm willing to be a loudmouth introvert on a freaking podcast called Unloose the Goose. I go to events. Do I have a good time at events, Jack?
Yeah, a little bit.
Time. I talk to lots of people. It has nothing to do. You being an introvert is you telling yourself a story about why you can't do something. Put that shit away. Yeah. Put on your big girl panties or your big boy boxers and go to the thing and make it your goal to talk to 5 people while you're there. And all of a sudden, you're going to find there's a whole bunch of people who also think they're introverts and can't go to events, first of all, also feel awkward in social situations. And none of that fucking matters because you've now just gotten 5 more people in your network who you trust. Or maybe 4 of them. Maybe you don't like one of them, whatever. But making the time to go to these things or to host things is key to establishing the trust that you need.
Hey, Nicole, do you see this where we have these things and we have this common idealism and somebody comes in, they're like, I'm an introvert. And as soon as they walk in, they're like, holy fuck, this is awesome. And they start talking to everybody.
Yeah.
Because you're not, most people, like there are people that are just like ridiculously shy or whatever. Most people that call themselves introverts, what they really mean is the shit I want to talk about, nobody's motherfuckers around me want to talk about it, right? It's the meme with the guy sitting all sad on the kid's swing, and he's like me at a party when no one wants to talk about guns. That's what they really mean, right? Like, but when you get to a place where like everybody's fucking normal, like we think that society's normal. Society's fucking sick.
Yeah.
Right? Society is diseased. It's mentally and physically sick. You want to see how sick society it is? You don't have to go to some kind of demented theater. Go to Walmart on the 1st or the 15th or the payday following it and look. And I don't mean judge people on like who they are. Look at them physically. Look at how they physically look. And you're like, oh, these people are sick. And you look at like people that like can barely move buying Twinkies and like they look, they're not okay. It'd be one thing if you're fat and happy and eating a Twinkie, but when you're fat and miserable eating a Twinkie, like, ugh. So society is not normal. And when we get around people that are like, I care mostly about taking care of my family, feeding my family, and preserving what we have, that's normal. And all of a sudden you're like, I thought I was an introvert, but since everybody
else is sick.
Everybody else is sick,
everybody is.
and I just don't want to talk to them. All these people suck.
And what they think is fun is not fun. This is my introvert's perspective. Okay?
Let's go out and get fucked up, man. No,
I've gone to so many events. And if you are an introvert, you recharge your energy in solitude. If you are an extrovert, you recharge your energy in groups of people. Mm-hmm. That's it. It doesn't mean you're shy or not shy. It doesn't mean you can talk to people or not talk to people. It doesn't mean you can't be a loudmouth like I am or not be a loudmouth. That's just how you recharge. When I go to an event in normal society, what I see is somebody saying shit to me, and I can read in their body language that they're lying. And that bothers me. That saps my energy. When I go to an event at Jack's this way, when I go to an event at Jack's, then the people who are talking to me say shit, and they actually mean the stuff they say, and their body language says they mean the stuff they say. That's not exhausting at all. It's a totally different experience, and that's why when I hear people saying I don't want to go because I'm an introvert, I'm like, just go. Just go. If you walk off on your own because you need a minute of solitude, nobody will bother you. Shit. Nobody's going to ask you why. Are you feeling okay? Are you having a bad day? They're not going to do that to you. Not at these, because you have genuine people who don't have a need to hide anything.
Yeah, I mean,
society, people are hiding everything.
Like, I think
if you're an introvert and you're thinking about not coming because you're an introvert. Let me see if I can give you the best reason you can come, and you can get away if you need to.
Yeah.
If you come here and you don't listen to the advice of don't drink as much as you think you can, and you drink to the point where you're sick, and you walk over to the bush and you puke, if you don't fall over on the ground and need physical help, nobody will bother you when you do that. So if you walk off because you just need a break, nobody's going to bother you. On the other side of that, I have been to some of these events, not really mine. It seems like the people that come here are so welcoming to each other that anybody that kind of isolates, like, people gently go around them and talk to them and make them comfortable. But I've been to like some of the bigger ones, like Free State back in like 2012, 2013 timeframe. That was huge. Like, a keynote there was like 600 people. And then like throughout, you had all these people, and you'd see somebody that was maybe very introverted sitting at a table by themselves. And like, I always tried to make an effort to like walk over and sit down and say, hey, what's your name? How you doing? And talk to them. And then all of a sudden they would come out and they'd be talking to everybody. And I think a lot of people, like, maybe they were the kid that sat alone in school and they never got over that or whatever. And like, they would be comfortable if they knew they could be comfortable. And like, especially if you are a known quantity, an Xavier Hawk or a Nicole Sauce or something, when you're in one of those environments and you see somebody like that, like, anybody should do this, but especially if you're kind of like, you're a headliner at an event or something, go talk to the people that are by themselves. Because then all of a sudden they're like, if fucking Xavier Hawk will come talk to me, well, then who the fuck can I talk to? If fucking Nicole Sauce will come talk to me, who can I talk to?
Yeah.
And like, it's really cool, I think, when you see people come out of their shell, or like, Nicole, sometimes at our events, we literally fucking destroy people emotionally and rebuild them in 3 days. Like they end up like
only
giving
people
this...
we know and love.
Yeah. But like, on like the third day, when we say, what are you taking home? Like, they have this fucking emotional fucking speech, and they're like, they have tears in their eyes, but they're not afraid to stand in front of fucking 80 people and do it. Like, that is like something that, like, if you can do that for people, fucking do that for people. Because like, so many of these people, like, they didn't have the uncles that I had that smacked them in the fucking head, right? They never had that. And like, one of the things I learned when I started doing this show, it was really weird, and it took me a while to be comfortable with it at all. Like, I'm a fucking male role model for fucking people I don't know. Like, what the fuck? Like, and like, you had people coming up to me going like, I never had anybody. And it wasn't just guys. Sometimes it was females. Like, I never had a strong male role model in my life. And like, you've been that for me. Like, shit. Like, you start like, I better be careful with what I fucking say. I don't want to fuck somebody's life up, but then you realize, like, so that 1 minute that I can walk over and talk to that person and say, hey man, how you doing? That actually matters to them. And then you realize, like, yeah, that might be because I'm on the microphone 5 days a week or whatever, but like literally anybody can do that at any moment. Like, so when you go to these events and you are the extrovert, you are the person willing to put yourself out there, or you're the introvert that's like been converted a little bit, and you see that person's by themselves, if they want to be left alone, leave them alone. But if they're just alone because they're afraid to talk to people, go talk to them. Like, be that connection. And then when you, like, what'll happen is, like, you see a guy like, the guy that, like, really stands out to me, Nicole, that comes to our workshop every time is Hawkeye. He's this older gentleman. He's a pharmacist. He's just a wonderful dude. And he's the guy that'll be like, oh, you're interested in doing pigs? I do pigs. And he'll talk to him. Or he'll be like, oh, you're interested in this? Let me tell you what. And he'll go get the other person. He'll put them together.
Yeah, he's great.
Right? And that all of a sudden,
he's the source of Tell Your Story in 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure he is. And he's the guy that'll be like, you know what I'm going to fucking do today? I'm going to find the two most fucking extroverted motherfuckers in this place. And I'm going to put them together. And I'm going to form and then I'm going to like build a cluster around them. And like, it's amazing. So like, if you can do that shit, go do that shit. Make networks happen. Like, you can be the network, you can be like the Lego master and like assemble shit and make it happen. And then just back off. And I think that's like one of the other things we need to do as influencers is, and I've tried to do this. I've tried to like check my ego. And a lot of times I set something up, I get it going. And then I just, it's not mine. I don't run it. I'm out of here. I'm done. You guys are on your own. You guys are going to grow. And like things will never, like networks will never become what they can become if you constantly keep trying to fuck with it. It's like when you bake a cake, you mix up a batter, you put the cake in the fucking oven. When the cake starts baking, you don't fucking touch it till it's done. Let it become a cake. And I think a lot of times in the society we've built online versus in real life, we've gotten to where, like, as influencers get to a point where they feel like, I need to control this. And then they wonder why it can't be organic, right? That's crazy. Like, let it be. Like, start it, get out of the way, and let it cook, see what it can become.
Should we give our community a homework assignment? Do you think that they'd do it?
Yeah.
If we said something like, get on Facebook groups or local community, something or other, and start an event on whatever it is you're interested in, have any modicum of interest or skill in, like wildcrafting or herbal, making herbal teas, whatever it is, something that's skill based. My offer or my invite would be go out and host an event yourself. If like, go make it happen. And what could we give them as a reward if they sent us a photo or a story or something, like, do we have Unloose the Goose t-shirts? I'll be willing to give them fire tokens. Like, do we have anything of intrinsic, fun value that we could give out for a reward to our community for going to start their own network?
A hearty virtual pat on the back. Good job. Like, because the reward you're going to get is going to be what happens. Like, and it doesn't have to be homestead.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't have to be survival prepping, political activity. If you like fucking remote control fucking cars, start some shit about remote control cars, because
I don't think that's appropriate. Fucking remote control cars. I think that's actually quite indecent. Let's make something a little bit more family friendly.
That was the improper interpretation of the use of the word fucking.
Oh my gosh.
Which is the most powerful word in the English language. You can Google that. Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin. Bitcoin would be great. Like, start up a meetup group. If you know, let me tell you something. People think they don't know about Bitcoin. Do you know how to buy Bitcoin? Do you know how to move Bitcoin off an exchange into your wallet? Do you know how to send Bitcoin from one person's wallet to another person's wallet? If you know those three things, you know something right now that's incredibly valuable. And you might think, like, anybody can do that shit. It's not that they can't. And that's why I'm doing a presentation on this at the workshop. Like, people are afraid to do it. They're afraid they'll break something, mess something up, get in trouble, whatever. And when they see somebody else do it, they're like, oh, that's it? You copy and paste this address and hit send and enter your password and it goes and it works. So, like, you could set up, like, how to get started with Bitcoin. And I guarantee you right now, you know what you're going to get? Especially if you're an old fuck like me, you're going to end up with a whole shitload of millennials that want to learn how to do this. And you know what they have? They have energy. And they have connections. And they have a social life that old bastards like me don't have anymore, right? Like, that's the foundations of a network. Like, and then you are a mentor. and you know,
Yep. Or you could go
there's-
to a blockchain meetup, right? There are blockchain meetups that you can go to. I'm
or
certain
just go to
every
one.
town.
Yeah.
Neethi, what do you do for your community? Do you have meetups that you do regularly or quarterly or anything like that?
I'm trying to get to the point where we can start doing more events here. But so far, what's been happening is the farms that I'm working with, they do farm dinners right now. So they're doing farm dinners at the moment. But I've actually I didn't have like all this space. A lot of these things just came out of the chaos of 2020. So I'm like I'm kind of in a build mode right now. And so that's the only reason I haven't really hosted more stuff here now. But in years past, we've had many events, and it's usually always on one of the farms that I'm working with. So we have meals, and we have, like a whole just day at the farm. It's not like a tour. It's more like a hangout and shop and meet and greet and, grill. We're grilling a lot.
Grilling helps.
There you go.
Every time.
You can do something where you don't have to have like the ability to do like a workshop as we think of it or anything really complex or whatever. If you can find like, a lot of places have community centers where you can play a movie and you can reserve it for $20 or for free or whatever. Just do like if you wanted to do gardening or permaculture, so maybe you do something like we're going to do a viewing of Jeff Lawton's Urban Permaculture and a discussion afterward. And you invite people. And if 10 people show up, 10 people show up. You bring freaking chips and dip or something. And then you sit down and watch that movie and then have an integrate, like what do you guys think about this? Like just a discussion. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the old thing of like, if you go on a blind date and you're going to do dinner and a movie, right? And you want it to go smooth, don't do dinner and a movie. Do a movie and dinner, right? Because if you do a movie and dinner, a lot of times people that can have a great conversation, they just need like the first time they're nervous and whatnot, they need to start. So if nothing else, you can talk about the movie was great or the movie was stupid, and then the conversation starts, and then maybe a relationship starts. So you do the same thing with something like this. You take something, instead of having to be responsible to stand up and say, let me tell you how to build your permaculture garden, you take something done by a professional that's really cool, and you basically do a movie night, but you don't call it that. That way people will show up. And then you talk about, like, what do you think we could do it? And then maybe one person's like, well, I have this really great yard, but I don't know that I could do this. And maybe those people say, well, they had permablitz in that. Let's do a permablitz at Tom's house. And 15 minutes ago, nobody who knew who the fuck Tom was. Right? Like,
so we would do screenings like that, and it doesn't even have to be a movie. Like it could be like short clips. It could be short little clips that you find from places and talk about what they're doing, like watch something, have a conversation about it, check it out, like compare, yeah. So we've done a lot of those, like open panel discussions.
Well, let me shamelessly pitch something. I'm doing an event in Camden, Tennessee on October 23rd called the Self-Reliance Festival. And the whole purpose of this, besides you get to see people do cool demos like how to brew beer or whatnot, is develop the in-person relationships, right? Mm-hmm. So if anybody's interested in coming out to Tennessee, it's livingfreeintennessee.com. If you go to the website, you can just click on it. There's a button to register. Do things like that. Go to the Solar Punk Festival, which apparently overlaps with that. Go to Jack's workshop. If Neethi's doing something, go to that. But
go to Rabbit Stick. Go to Firefly. Yeah. Go to something.
Yeah, it's all of these things are a way to network together. And I can say this because there is so much opportunity for these kinds of events this fall. I'm in the process of putting together an event calendar between now and the end of the year with links to these different events that I'm hearing about. We need to start getting off our asses and getting out and doing stuff and talking to each other so we can have those tight relationships, because once you do that, it's great. And then I saw a comment on I should get on Telegram to talk to people, because Xavier is trying to connect with somebody at Telegram. That is one of the challenges, is we don't have a unified place where we talk. So some freedom cells are on Discord. Some freedom cells are on Telegram. Rogue food people, I don't even know where they talk right now, because some want to be on Facebook and some want to be on Telegram, right? and then Unloose
They
the
should
Goose.
come
We've
to
got
Fire
people
On.
on YouTube. We've got people on Odyssey. The reality is, if you're going to do the digital interchange and you're like, I really want to be active, you may have to be on more than one network. Is what it is. Get comfortable with it. Go for it. Find where the action is and participate in the action. I end up talking on Telegram for Freedom Cells more than other things. I end up talking on MeWe for Jack's stuff, TSP, and for Living Free in Tennessee. And I'm pretty much absent on Discord right now, but that doesn't mean I will always be, right? There's more comments on Odyssey than YouTube, so I'll be on Odyssey. You kind of have to become a jack of all networks if you want to really stay connected.
Yeah.
I'll be at the
much as I
Mountain
hate that,
Rain
you're
Jam next
right.
weekend, you guys. If you guys want to come there, it's gonna be live.
Let me tell
music.
you why you should go where Nicole went. I'm sorry, Nithya. I thought you were done. I got a delay.
Sorry, I was just telling everybody that while we're putting plugs in, that I'll be at the Mountain Run Jam next weekend in Virginia, and I love it because it's a whole weekend of workshops, but there's also live music and food and drinks and family and fun.
What I was saying there, and I'm sorry I stepped on you, Nithya. I had like a delay here, and I didn't realize you weren't done. You should go to Nicole's thing she's talking about in Tennessee and Camden with John Willis, because if you think Jack is a hard ass, after you experience John Willis, you'll feel like Jack is a guy that will swaddle you like a baby and pat your back. And maybe you need that. I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I think John is one of my heroes because I think he has done so much for so many young men who needed somebody just to basically say, listen, motherfucker, stand up and live your life like a man.
That's right.
And I think that, like, if you can make the time to go meet John Willis, you should.
I mean, honestly, he used to call this Man Day. He kept talking about doing a Man Day, and I'm like, let's do the Self-Reliance Festival, and I'm showing people how to make cheese and do canning because girls can learn Man Day things too. And so we had to find a different name, but that is it does flow like after the event. It flows into a party where we have a big bonfire and fun. X, anything you want to plug before we sign off? I do have a quote to read before we sign off too.
The one thing we shouldn't take any advice from him on is who to use as your internet service provider. He has no fucking idea how to do it.
Oh, yeah. No, that's true. No, I think we've covered it all. I think, getting out there, I really love the idea of asking our community to host an event on their own and see what results they get. Look at it as a skill building exercise. This is something you need to learn how to do and are going to need to know how to do in the coming years without the internet. So figure out what you are, who you are, and how you interface with folks in that way. Throw an event, whatever it is.
Yep.
Okay.
So on that note, after talking about underground networking, I leave you with this quote from Colson Whitehead, the Underground Railroad, a different underground network that did a lot of good, actually. The world may be mean, but people don't have to be, not if they refuse. The reason I chose that quote is the purpose when I think of underground networks is we're in a world where people are being encouraged to be mean to each other. We can stand up and opt out of that, and underground networks will help us do that. With that, I just want to say thanks for joining us today in episode 54 of Unloose the Goose. If you thought this was a good episode, please share it with your friends. We'll have the audio podcast out tomorrow, or you can share the Odyssey or YouTube links with your friends and drop us a review on one of the podcast networks. That helps us get more listeners. With that, guys, have a great weekend and go find your people, man. Go find your people.